shooting the pilot. Millen was shooting the pilot back in 2003, 2004, around that time. Did a bit of camera work and helped out on a couple of skits. And then when he got the funding, just gave us a phone call to try help up speed the writing process. Pretty much.
Yeah, what he said. Pretty much. That was great. It's really awesome to take something from being involved in the writing process all the way through to editing as well, because you get to see where they messed it up in the middle, where I wasn't there. So it was really cool to be able to do that, to conceptualize something with the other guys, and then take the footage and put it together in a whole new way, because you've got to take your writer's hat off and put on your editor's hat, which is a completely different sort of mode. And yeah, it's great fun.
And I guess it's also good to see, from your case, starting at the writing process, what the stuff that did get cut and whether or not it was a valid reason for it getting cut,
yeah,
or whether or not it could have stayed in, what would have worked, what did
right.
work compared to what didn't work, and why.
Being the editor as well, it was great to see why we had to cut things, what worked and what didn't work. It really informed my writing for stuff I've done since. Series 2, anyone? Definitely. When the actors inhabit and create the characters on screen, just basically bring them to life, it's a whole different thing to acting it out in the room when you're writing, which is a fun thing in itself. But so some characters started out as my favourite on the page, and wound up being not my favourite. Other factors would come in, and other people would contribute to these characters and bring out nuances and all sorts of things to increase their value, really. And so other characters wound up being my favourite.
Like John Rogers would have been probably one of the characters I liked on paper, and turned out even better than it was than I think was written. It really came out that this is a guy, this masculine guy, repressed in somewhat of a feminine world. And I guess the funny thing about PowerPoint is not so much gag based as it is character based. And to come to the acting side of it, a lot of the actors could see the character we're trying to convey, the substance behind them, and they could improv from that and really deliver some spectacular lines that you just couldn't write on the day. It just comes out on the day, really. Improv's got to come from somewhere, and it's just like, the New Testament, it's only as good as the foundation it's built on. So if you give it some sort of substance, you're going to be sort of better prepared to shoot from the hip.
Yeah, I'm all about structure, so I mean so I'm not so precious about lines and things. So I love working with actors who can take that and make it better. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but you just cut it out and it's fine. The dialogue that we all wrote was probably a last resort almost. But as I think as the crew kept shooting, and as the actors got to know each other even better and better, the level of improv jumped up even more. So within that structure that's set by the script, the improv just gets, makes it better. So I think I love improv.
I think we had the ability to take, the characters from the pilot and really nut out what they're really about. What's the truth behind them. I think good comedy comes from identifying the truth, whether you're exaggerating or not. It's just you're portraying it in a way that comes out funny, because people can sort of recognise the truth out in their world of that character. And I think all the characters sort of had a truth that the layman could see, and I think the depth in trying to nut out, whereas in the pilot you're sort of winging it in a sense, you're guessing. You had a bit of time to sort of nut out where these characters are coming from and why they're doing what they do, and giving them the best sort of, creating the best environment to play out on. Because essentially PowerPoint is a world made up of the people in it, and they live this independent life around each other and come into conflict with each other. which comes up for some real funny moments.
And I think there was a evolution that happened really from the pilot to the show, by way of having to tell a story over a lot more episodes. You know, the pilot's only one thing, and we all created that with, it had been just a half hour. There was no other episodes after that, and to be able to write more of a story and how all these characters interweave together in this town introduces a much more depth. You're able to go so much further into depth. But the other transition that happened, I think, that was really great was taking the show from more of a sketch comedy to more of a hybrid between that and maybe a sitcom, where you've got, it's more like a multi-plot kind of a movie where all of these things are happening, but it's all interrelated. And I think for characters, it's a great way to explore in a short space of time some depth about these archetypes, because all these characters were based on real people, real situations, and real situations in New Zealand.
And I mean, if you were to just see the show, cut it up yourself, so to speak, on YouTube, just download your favorite bits, it'd still work independently as a skit or an independent scene. But there's some work gone into making that independent scene, and it comes from a whole. It comes from something that's structured. And like Flatmates is a good example. I mean, that's starts out as a small conflict, and it grows over time. And even the very first conflict you see between Ricky and Warren, it's subtle, but it's funny in its own right. But each time as it progresses through the series, it gets more intense. The conflict's stronger, and ultimately comes to a climax where the repressed has to take action, or else he's gonna suffer.
That's right, I did. We're expecting our first child any day now. This is no joke. Met my partner on set, so yeah, good times.